What the heck then?
Every time I watch that video, I have a little bit of a chuckle. Last video, we talked about how pervasive fakes are in the marketplace. Now, if you haven't seen that video, I highly recommend you watch it. I will add it in the description below and in a link above. That video brings up a very important question, which is, how do you know if the item is a real antique or a common fake? So this video is going to build a little bit on that. I'm going to show you how to distinguish between the antique and the fake without knowing anything. You're just going to use your eyes. The last time I made you guess. You didn't know what item was real and which was fake in the video. This time I'm going to show you the fake. You're going to know it's a fake. No need to guess. Now you won't know why it's a fake or how to tell it's a fake, but by the time you're done watching this video, you will.
Welcome to Find the Fake, the show where contestants have a chance to win big money by avoiding fakes. Let's meet our first contestant, Bob from New York City. So Bob, tell us about yourself and avoiding fakes.
Hi, John. I am 42 years old this year and I work in the insurance industry. I've been collecting for a while and think I have been avoiding fakes for about 10 years.
So we're going to use a piece of furniture for this example. There's a very specific reason why we're going to use furniture, because something unique happened between the time I made that video and this video. In the last video, I showed you a scene between a typical overseas wholesaler buying items in China and his interaction with a Chinese vendor, and I contrasted that with how I would handle that particular scenario. So what's interesting is when I first released the video, for the first few days, or even actually probably a couple days longer, the subtitles in the Chinese section didn't render. And I didn't even realize that until a few days later. So most people, when they came across that section of the video, they took it to mean, okay, there is something going on in another language that I don't understand. And therefore, if I was that wholesaler, I probably should exercise some caution. Or at least that's what I'm assuming people were taking away from that. Now, that's actually a decent takeaway. But we want to go a layer deeper. So let's show you that section again. But this time we're going to show it to you with the subtitles rendering. And the reason I want to show you this little clip again is because after that video was released, that actual exact same scenario played out right in front of me just a few days later. Let's have a quick look. And then I'll tell you about it. Mr. Chen, is this piece old?
Yes. Older. Older.
Old? Okay. Oh, good price. Nice piece. Good find. Now let me show you how that interaction works with me. 这东西是老的还是新的？老的，肯定是老的。你吃安是老的吗？100%是老的。哼，不会骗你。你认识老张吗？他是河北人，那工厂在山东。我觉得这是老张的货，我去过他的工厂好多次，也买过他的货好多次。你觉得我傻逼吗？我干了多少年？这东西100%是新的。哇，你怎么认识老张？你好聪明，非常聪明。Around the time that video came out, I was in an online forum related to Chinese antiques, and a mainland seller came in and posted a chair. Now, they had a very nice story about the chair, It got some lovely comments. It got some attention. Look at what they wrote. Not just a chair, really, more like a quiet companion for reflection. They probably used DeepSeek to write this because ChatGPT is blocked in China. And this sounds lovely, but of course it is just total BS. The chair is a fake. Now, what I did, of course, was, being me, I commented that in Chinese, that I've been in the furniture industry in China for many, many years on the China side, not the foreign side, and that these chairs are made by people that I know, and that this is a fake, and that this sort of thing may work on other foreigners, but I am not that kind of foreigner, and this doesn't work on me. Now, I had a feeling that they would probably delete it right away because they have gotten caught and they are saving face. And I've been in this situation before, and of course, sure enough, they did delete it. But I managed to screenshot it beforehand. And this presents us with an opportunity. We can use this chair as a real-world example of the sort of things that you'll come across. Let me show you how to use your eyes and nothing else just to tell that this item is a fake.
Welcome back to Find the Fake. Before we get started, let's have a look at today's prize. Tell us what today's prize is.
Today, our first prize is a chance to save a lot of cash by not buying fakes.
Very nice. And what do we have for second place?
Today's second place prize is this fake antique Chinese chair worth absolutely nothing.
Before we go forward, let me give you a quick history lesson so you actually know what a meditation chair even is. So chairs have been around in the Western world for quite some time. But in China, they didn't really start becoming a widespread thing until roughly 1,000 years ago. Before that, people sat on reed mats on the ground. So what was it that brought them from being on reed mats on the ground to sitting on chairs? Well, almost 2,000 years ago, roughly, during the Han Dynasty, Buddhism began to spread into China. Now, within Buddhism, religious figures, deities, people of importance are usually elevated off the ground. They're elevated on some sort of platform, we can call it. Over time, that platform and that idea of elevating oneself off of the ground became the chair in China. Now, this is a very simplified explanation of what happened. There are some other things that occurred as well. There is something called the huchuang, the barbarian bed, which also evolved into a different type of chair. But this is good enough for this particular video. You also will really get this sense because the meditation chair is a great transitional form. It's a chair. It looks like what we think of as a chair, but it is elevated off the ground. It is used for meditation. It is associated with Buddhism and religious figures. So it's a great example of that. By the way, something to keep in mind is this transition never actually occurred in Korea and never actually occurred in Japan. So up until modern day, most Japanese and most Koreans did not sit on chairs. They were still sitting on mats on the ground. The other thing to notice about the meditation chair is the proportions are a little bit different. It's much wider than a normal chair, and that's going to become important, as you'll see later on in the video. I wanted to take a moment to thank everyone who left a comment on my last video. I was really not expecting that. There were hundreds of comments. They are still coming in, and people were very kind. They left overwhelmingly positive comments, and I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts with me. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. I didn't expect that. So when we're talking about furniture, it's important to realize that yes, sometimes the line can be a little bit blurry between what's original, what's a fake. what's a modified piece made from old parts. That's not what's going on here though, so I want to be very clear about that. This piece is fake, period. So let's be very clear about that. Let me show you what to look at using nothing but your eyes. You don't need to know anything else. You don't need to know about construction or anything, finishes. All you need to do is look with your eyes. So let's do that. Let's start with wear and tear. So when I look at this chair at first glance, it looks good. It looks oldish. It's got, it looks quite good actually. Definitely seems good at first glance. I look at the seat edge, which has got some wear and tear. The screen panels in the back have got some wear. Yeah, it looks very good. But if we look at it closely, something starts to look wrong. So let's start with the footrest. So if you look at the footrest, it is perfectly clean. There's zero wear and tear there. Now, sure, you can say that, well, it's a meditation chair. They sat cross-legged on the top, so that would be a fair point. But there's a lot of other weird, strange places about this chair as well. The feet seem to be very clean cut, considering. Now, lots of times in China, you have dirt floors. You have a very rough and tumble history. A lot of things have happened there. It has not been very good on furniture. Usually furniture gets destroyed there. These feet look pretty good for something that's supposed to be several hundred years old. Usually they should have sustained some water damage or something, but none of that is hit. That's not happening at all on this piece. Let's also look at the construction, basically the carpentry. A lot about the construction doesn't seem to match either. In fact, if you look closely, you'll see there's a lot of sharp edges, but then there's also rounded edges. So, for example, the edges on the base, on the legs, the feet, the stretchers are all very sharp edges. But then, if you look at, for example, the screen panel in the back, there's very heavy wear and tear on those screen panels. That's kind of strange. Also, what is this weird thing here in the screen panel? What is that? So there's really no need to even talk about something complicated like understanding joinery. Without knowing any of that, just something is weird about this chair. Then we have the patina. The patina is really odd too. It's uneven everywhere. So for example, if you look at the seat has a lot of patina, but no wear. So if somebody was sitting cross-legged on that seat, you would expect to see some wear from your butt. Doesn't have any. Very, very odd. If you look at the patina between the joints as well, it's non-contiguous. I'm probably saying that wrong, but it doesn't flow. And let me show you what that looks like, what it should look like. The other thing is, if you look at the top of the armrest, that doesn't match either. On the armrest, you have a sort of caramel brown color, but on the top of the seat, you have a dark mocha, chocolatey, blackish brown. So two different colors. Very odd. Then you have the proportions of the whole thing. Now, at first glance, the proportions look good, but if you look carefully at it for a minute, it's not particularly refined. It is clunky and it is unbalanced.
Let's ask our first question. Are you ready? Our first question is, tell me one of 4 things needed to make this fake.
I think you need old screen panels.
That is correct.
Okay, so let's put together the puzzle. Now, in order to do that, I actually need to take the chair apart so I can show you what I mean. Let's start with the back and the sides. Now, you can see a lot of very natural weathering in the wood on this particular lattice pattern. New screens wouldn't really have that look. They would be sanded quite cleanly, and you can't really age them in a way that would produce this effect. So these look genuinely old because they actually are old. Now there's lots of junk screens still lying around in China. There are a couple places to get these kind of screens. These ones in particular were probably a window screen or some other outdoor architectural element because they're very heavily worn. It's very difficult to achieve this artificially, and the ones that are inside are also worn, but they're not really worn in this way. So these are probably outside window screens. These screens get used for a lot of things. They also get used for coffee tables. When we had the factory, that was something that we would do a lot. We'd make coffee table bases and then set the old screens. So in this case, to use them for a chair, you've got to cut them down to size, and you got to cut down the back and the sides, the sides as well, and voila, you end up with this. So that's also why you see this really odd spot in the corner. That's because the lattice work is not really properly sized for the chair. It was made as a window screen. Here's another fake actually made in China, and they do the exact same thing. This is a very common technique.
Our second question is, how do you make the seat look old?
I think Bob is wrong. I'm gonna guess you need black paint.
Oh, I am so sorry. This is incorrect.
I think you need an old tabletop.
That is correct. Completely correct.
Have a look at the seat. Now, this also looks like there's some natural weathering and wear and tear. But it's a bit odd because you would think if somebody was sitting there, even sitting there cross-legged, there should be some wear and tear, some smoothing out of the patina, but there isn't any. So why is that? Well, that's because this top is actually an old tabletop. You can't really use an old chair for this purpose. Remember earlier we said that we would come back to the proportions, why that's important. Well, this is the reason why. The meditation chair is much bigger than a normal chair. So taking an old chair and repurposing for this case won't work. You need something bigger. And so an old, junk tabletop works actually much better. You take it apart at the joints, you cut it down to size, put it back together, and you have a relatively convincing seat. Now, the patina, as we said on the top, is very odd, but we're going to come back to that in a minute.
Win big money and avoiding fakes. Our third question is, how do you make the base section seem old?
I think the answer is reclaimed wood.
That is correct.
Let's look at the base. Now, there's nothing easy that you can modify in terms of like an old chair or something like that. It's just not going to work because of the size, because of the proportions. So you basically need to do the carpentry. You need to make it from scratch. However, you have a different problem. You can't really use new wood here. The color, the grain, it will be very obvious if you use new wood here. So what do? Well, one common source of reclaimed wood is old doors. There's lots of old doors around still. They've been exposed to the elements. They have some, wear and tear already. Even in the areas where you make fresh cuts to the wood will have a somewhat different color than new wood, and it's much easier to dig out the grain to give that sort of weathered look on the old wood than it is with the new wood. So I would guess that probably they used old doors here for this material. Some other reclaimed wood as well, but probably old doors are quite likely.
Our final question is, what lacquer finish do you use on the new pieces?
Okay, this is one time I know I am correct. The answer here is cracked lacquer.
Very good. That is correct.
And finally, you need some patina. So there's a few ways of accomplishing this. One way is to actually use something that's genuinely old, and so it already has some patina. In this case, I think that's probably the case with the seat, in which you're using an old tabletop, and so it has the original patina. Now, if you look at the floating panel within the frame of the seat, some of that patina is artificial, but a lot of it looks original. So again, I think they probably just used reclaimed wood, possibly old door panels. You see, when you use an old door panel, they've been outside, they've accumulated a lot of dirt, they've accumulated a lot of patina, and you can choose to sand that away, or you can choose to keep it. If you keep it and you build a piece with all the original patina on it, even though the piece is new, it actually looks quite convincing. And when I had the factory in Beijing, we often made this sort of copy for customers, and the results look pretty good. So I think that's probably what's happening here. Now, other than that, you'll still have to touch up some other areas. So you need some lacquer. And if you look at the armrests, you will see that actually this color, this caramel brown color, is actually a ready-made color that is very easy to buy in China. And that is a crackle finish. So you apply it, you sand it down a little bit, and then you end up with this distressed look that to the untrained eye looks pretty convincing. There is a third way that they're adding some patina, or shall we say in this case color, which is wax. The base of the chair has been waxed. Anytime you apply wax to raw wood, the color of the wood will change a little bit, and it will darken slightly. It's not permanent, but it lasts for a little while, and that's probably what they have done here. He might have touched some stain up here and there too. I see on the foot there's a little bit of, it looks like white paint to look like dust on the ground. But all in all, you put those three things together, and again, it looks quite convincing. So now you know that using only your eyes, no knowledge, you can look at a piece and see what story it tells you. Does it flow? Is it disconnected? Does it feel beautiful, or does it feel awkward? Usually those are the clues that will tell you whether or not a piece is real or a copy. Usually the copies cut corners, and the corners that they cut usually result in something feeling off, something feeling disconnected, something feeling not lovely. As always, if you like the video, please leave a comment, click like, click subscribe, let me know what you think. That feedback is always very useful to me. It tells me that I should make more videos for you.